Audio test 1 for the meeting stream. Audio test 2 for the meeting stream.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m., so we'll get started. I'm going to start the meeting by welcoming our newest member of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, Isabel Skalski. Isabel is our new representative for Osgood Ward 20. And Isabel, it's great to have you on board. Thank you very much. And I know I speak for all our colleagues, especially Councillor Kitts, where we both think it's great now that you can do all the work on Osgood Ward, and we're going to start having a summer off. I'll ask the committee coordinator to do the roll, please.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Luloff.
Good morning.
Councillor Skalski.
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Present.
And Chair Brown, you have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge that today is the official opening of the Hard Rock Casino in Osgood Ward. They've been a great community partner, and I know it's a major economic driver in rural Ottawa and the city of Ottawa as a whole. So really pleased to see such a great partner come online today. I'd also like to acknowledge that the province has recently changed the designation of rural Ottawa and is providing the rural part of the city with that rural designation, something that we've lacked since amalgamation about 25 years ago. So very pleased that the province has worked with the city of Ottawa, and we'd like to thank Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, Minister Thompson, and our former councillor and new friend at Queen's Park, MPP DeRuse, for all of the work to get that done. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 5.1 and 5.2 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those specifically identified in the Planning Act who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal to the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of receipt of the application for a zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on the 23rd of July 2025, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, are the minutes of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee meeting of Thursday, June 3rd confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Item 4.1 is the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee revised terms of reference. We do have a delegate who has signed up to speak, so I'm going to hold that item for now, colleagues, and we'll carry on to approve what we can on consent. We also have a delegate for item 4.2, so we'll hold that. Item 5.1, zoning bylaw amendment 2050 Dunrobin Road. We have one request to speak from Mr. Paul Robinson. Now, Paul, if this matter carries on consent to the committee, do you still wish to speak? No. No. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. Colleagues, is there anyone who'd like to speak on this? The report recommendations are that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 2050 Dunrobin Road as shown in document 1 to permit 8 residential lots and a drainage block as detailed in document 2. That the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report. Is this item carried? Thank you. Item 5.2, zoning bylaw amendment anomaly report to update the floodplain mapping for 4840 Whispering Willow Drive. There are no presentation. We've received no request to speak, and I don't see that there's any additional correspondence. However, committee members, does anyone wish to speak on this?
Just a thank you to staff for their work on this. Very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, Councillor. The report recommendations are that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 4840 Whispering Willow Drive as shown in document 1 to update the floodplain mapping overlay to match the updated floodplain mapping as approved by the South Nation Conservation Authority, and 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Item 6.1, the Isaac Moore Municipal Drain, appointment of an engineer. There's no presentation and we've received no requests to speak. However, if anyone is in the room and would like to speak or members of committee have any questions, happy to hold the item. Seeing none, the report recommendations are that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council appoint Robertson's Consultants, Inc. as the engineer of record to prepare a report under section 78(1) of the Drainage Act to inform council on the current status of the Isaac Moore Municipal Drain and whether one or more of the projects listed under subsection 78(1.1) is required for the better use, maintenance, or repair of the drainage works or lands or roads. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. And we do have an IPD, private lane contractors. I don't know if anyone wants to lift that item. Seeing none, we'll take that as received. So we'll go back to the terms of reference, item 4.1. I believe Kathy is online. Perfect. And Kathy, just before you get rolling, I'm going to ask Councillor Kitts to read in a direction that she has, so you're aware of that during your delegation. So Councillor Kitts.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I'll read it in. That resources and ongoing training to be provided to departments to support staff in identifying reports and matters that have significant or distinct rural implications that should be considered by the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. And just some context, I believe that the terms of reference are quite broad, and that we already had a lot under our purview within this mandate, but that over time, there was sort of an erosion of staff bringing forward reports to this committee. So I see today as sort of a recommitment to the mandate of ARAC, but I didn't want to see that sort of slippage happen again over time. So this is just a direction to staff to ensure that the legislative staff in each department know what is appropriate to bring forward to ARAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, Kathy, you're no stranger to the committee, so when you're ready to roll, you've got 5 minutes.
Great. As I mentioned in my email, I want to talk to both items 4.1 and 4.2, but I'll do 4.1 first. As you know, I've been keenly aware in the revised terms of reference to make sure, as Catherine Kitts just said, that the powers are not eroded by the ARAC committee. So the report says that general responsibilities would now include that ARAC shall be responsible directly to council for those items outside the urban boundary emanating from the blah, blah, blah. My concern with this point, and just to elaborate a little bit, is as the urban boundary is expanding, as we've just talked about in a previous item, as the urban boundary expands, the rural boundary is decreasing. So therefore, the decision-making powers of this committee are also eroding just by the landmass eroding. So I just wanted to point that out. Then the report further talks about ARAC decisions must go to council where urban and suburban councillors vote on them. This is really the opposite of what rural voices want. I suggest that the city review all of its delegated authority bylaws, and there must be schedules attached to this bylaw where it says, under this department, this program, you can spend this much money, or the trigger is whatever. I'm still waiting to get that detail from Caitlin's office. So again, why are we not empowering ARAC to truly make rural decisions? So if something, for example, the closure of the road allowance at Nichols Store, ARAC, the decision sat with ARAC. It didn't have to go to another level of a committee or council or whatever to get voted upon it. I need to understand, and I would really like to have that list, what's included, the must go to council, what gets decided at a lower level committee. So I guess my point there is let the rural approvals remain at the ARAC table. Don't send it to the other 20 councillors or whatever. If ARAC, are they really more than an advisory committee? The same as some of the planning advisory committees or whatever. Why doesn't ARAC have enough power to make those decisions based at the ARAC table? Furthermore, the terms of reference talks about the public but talks about the rural summit feeding into the revised terms of reference. The public hasn't received anything, no outcomes from the rural summit. There's been no report issued. If there are department heads in each department that have a rural liaison function, I don't know who they are. Maybe I'm just the only one who doesn't know this. And things like, so who is the rural affairs office? Maybe I'm just the only one that doesn't know this. I'm not sure. But there doesn't seem to be enough power given to your committee, and you take 80% of the land mass. You guys have received emails from me in the past, and you know my position on this. What was incorporated into the terms of reference, and why hasn't the public been told what the outcome was that got incorporated into the terms of reference? With reference to the acquisition of Ferry Road, I think you're all quite aware that that whole thing started when I sent an email saying, well, who's got the delegated authority to spend $2 million, blah, 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 blah. That whole conversation surrounded like we're spending $2 million to buy land when we can hardly get down our roads. Our rural roads need fixing. So again, how come this, who was given the authority in staff? I know who it was. How did Clark revoke that authority? Let's understand those delegated authorities for various pieces of spending or functionalities in the city. And I'm suggesting that when the report says strengthen the committee's mandate, ensure reports with, the word is significant, rural implications should be considered by this committee. This implies that staff have the delegated authority over insignificant rural implications. So what's significant and what's insignificant? How do you guys have the power over those decisions? Is Ferry Road insignificant or significant? I have no idea how that's defined. Maybe somebody can sort of elaborate on that. And then the report also talks about recent council direction is also included in the terms of reference. What was that direction that the council made?
30 seconds.
So again, I'm just wrapping up now. Those are my concerns, and I don't know that they've been dealt with well enough and given strong enough language to this committee in the new terms of reference. So those are my concerns. I'm hoping you can consider those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I'm going to see if there's any questions from my colleagues. So Kathy, I will speak. I think it's great that you've come out today, because one of the big takeaways for the Rural Summit was to have a little bit more of an empowerment for the Rural Affairs Committee. And that's something that, you know, I'm not just saying as a politician, the 5 members of ARAC, we truly believe that. We want to make sure that we have impact on residents' lives in rural Ottawa. I am going to have a question for the clerk, and because I want to hear the official explanation as to how committees operate under the council structure. But what you've brought up to here for us and our consideration today is important. You know, it really is fundamental to how we do our jobs and how we're perceived to do our jobs. And no one gets into municipal politics for any fanfare or glory, because they're neither of either. But what we do get in politics for, specifically at the municipal level, is to make those daily impacts on residents' lives. So I appreciate you coming out and speaking today. And I'm not seeing any of the questions from my colleagues, but I will ask the city clerk if she can detail how the council and committee structure is set up and where those authorities come from, and then how ARAC is supposed to do our function as tasked by council. So Caitlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe taking a step back and speaking broadly, all of the authority within the municipality is vested with council. So council is the decision-making body. It is where council has delegated that authority to staff. That staff may exercise that delegated authority without a committee or council approval. And in each case, there is a requirement for a reporting mechanism up to council about how that delegated authority has been exercised. As it relates to standing committees, quite different than advisory committees, and not just ARAC. The primary role of standing committees is to make recommendations to council. So it is where the public can be heard through public delegations. Delegations cannot speak directly at council, they can speak at the standing committee. Receive presentations from staff, hear from the public, make amendments and recommendations up to council. and then council makes the final decision. There are some limited circumstances where council has delegated final approval authority to committees, but that's more the exception than the rule. So road closures in the Air Act terms of reference is one example. The grant program approvals is one example. In other committees, there are some other limited examples as well, but largely speaking, council makes that final determination based on the recommendations of its committees.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And I will say again, Kathy, that a report will be forthcoming, but part of the rural summit that I would like to think is different is that it was the councillors and our 10 rural champions that really drove that process. It wasn't a staff function. It was something that we were doing, and it will be us who write that report so we can present it to committee, council, and members of the public. That's something that will happen. But one of the key pieces that we needed in place was the approval of the terms of reference. And so today I'm quite confident that our upgraded terms of reference will be approved by this committee. They'll go to council, and that's something that I'm sure won't face any resistance. Council's been very supportive of the Rural Summit process, and that's something that we were very pleased about. So it might not give you an answer to all of the questions you posed today, but it's an ongoing conversation, and I know each member of committee is happy to continue to engage with you. And I know Councillor Kelly, he's the primary fella for you, and he's been doing a great job for West Carleton and on the rural affairs team. So thank you very much for coming out today, Kathy. Much appreciated. Colleagues, are there any questions to staff on this item? Seeing none. And the direction to staff, can I just get confirmation that staff are prepared to accept the direction from Councillor Kitts?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Caitlin. All right, the report recommendations are that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve its revised terms of reference as outlined in this report and attached as document 1. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much. 4.2, Kathy, you've signed up to speak to that one as well. It's the status update, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending the 23rd of June, 2025. So you have 5 minutes, Kathy. Why don't you go ahead?
I won't take long. This kind of ties into the previous item, but what I'm looking for is a link to those reports where you have the long-term deliverables by staff or committees or council or whomever, and you also have the near-term stuff. So for example, every Friday, the city sends out meetings for next week and the agendas and blah, 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 and all that stuff. But the problem with that is that the public doesn't have enough time if the meeting, for example, is on a Tuesday. So keeping in mind, I appreciate you guys, this is your full-time work and whatnot, but in consideration of the people who don't work for the city and who are not councillors that do have a day job, they are given notification on a Friday that there could be a Monday meeting, a Tuesday meeting, a Wednesday meeting. They don't have enough time to take time off work to make a public delegation, put a delegation together, arrange daycare and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm suggesting is that you guys send that notification out earlier. So for example, the Monday of the week before the week's meetings instead of the Friday afternoon. And the other part of my input to you is that you post the list. It's the status report that was attached, this thing here, that goes with this item. So is there a place that this is located centrally for all the committees, the same way you post all the city's agendas and that kind of thing? Is there like a standing list of these are the outstanding motions, directions, what's coming up in Q1, Q2, Q3? This would help the city, like the residents, plan better, knowing that all of a sudden, for example, the battery energy storage thing pops up on the city's agenda and people have 5 days to get ready for making delegations, arrange daycare, take the time off work. So what I'm suggesting is put these reports for each standing committee in a central location on the city's website, maybe with the committee agendas, and staff know, or the public knows, okay, go look at the Q3 deliverables. Then as it gets closer to Q3, hopefully then there's enough time if you guys give a more advanced notice to people on the Monday, then they'd have a whole week to get ready for the following week's meetings. Because I'm sure staff knows in enough time to get ready for the following week's agendas. So that was all I wanted to say about that. And then obviously, I think there's supposed to be a rural liaison person for each of the city's department, but maybe it's just me and I'm the only one who doesn't know who these people are in each department and who's in the rural affairs office with respect specifically to ARAC stuff. Maybe I'm just the only one who doesn't know who these people are. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to give that to you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Are any questions for the delegate on this item? Not seeing any. I will ask perhaps the clerk to outline how we publish notifications for council and committee, where documents are listed and how the public can access those. If you could just give us a headliner.
So all council and standing committee agendas are published to ottawa.ca. So there's a calendar, ottawa.ca/agendas. The agendas for the standing committees, including ARAC, are published 7 business days in advance of the meeting, and those committees generally meet on a regular schedule. And then council agendas, which largely consist of items that are rising to council from standing committees, are published the Friday prior to the meeting. That's set out in the city's procedure bylaw, which is reviewed at the beginning of each term of council through the governance review process.
Thank you very much. So we could potentially change how we amend that process and then provide more time in the next term of council when we review the procedure bylaw.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my recommendation would be that would be the time, and to give consideration to some of the factors that might impact timelines, planning application timelines under the Planning Act being one key consideration for how quickly or how far in advance a matter can be brought forward to a committee agenda.
Thank you very much. And so that's something we can take away, Kathy. We can see what we can do with council in the next term, those of us who remain after that election. And the other thing I may suggest as well is if you are interested in seeing something and are having trouble, you know, again, Councillor Kelly's office could be of assistance in tracking some of that information down, or any of us for that matter. I know everyone's willing to help. And if it's simply a matter of getting that information out a little easier, I think that's something we can all commit to. So thank you very much for coming out today. Colleagues, the report recommendations are that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee receive this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Received.
Thank you very much. I just want to confirm that there were no in-camera items. I believe I skipped that. So I will now go to Item 9, open mic session. We have one gentleman, Mr. Wayne Stevenson, all the way from downtown North Gore, who's here to speak to committee today. So you can come ahead down here, Wayne.
Thank you for allowing me to address you. I am from North Gore, and I'm a retired police officer. 35 years working for the province of Ontario. Marlborough Forest is my problem. I have addressed this with David Brown several times. I contacted the head of city forestry to launch my complaint, which was, we own land in Marlborough Forest and we are not allowed access to it. They have gated the roads and they've passed a bylaw that prohibits the use of a four-wheeler except during the fall hunting season. The man at the time said, "Oh dear, I think we could do something about that. I'll call you back." That's 2 years ago. He's never called me back. So I've been dealing with David Brown. I have to give you the background on the Marlborough Forest so you understand what's going on. In the late 60s, early 70s, regional government started to purchase up land in Marlborough Township. And they gave the management job to the Ministry of Natural Resources, which seemed like a very logical thing to do, except what they did was annoyed an awful lot of people, landowners included. They weren't consulting with them at all. Thankfully, our regional councillor, Betty Hill, stepped in and appointed a Marble Forest Advisory Body, having members from the public that use the forest, landowners, the snowmobile clubs, all involved with the advisory body. When we started that, we turned things around and things started to happen. Prior to that, the Ministry of Natural Resources, when they acquired land, they closed the land access to us. They said we could hunt, but they didn't allow us to keep our hunt camp. And they closed what was known as the Baker Road, which was a road that was built through from the 5th concession and Flood Road across the 6th. The 6th concession, Roger Stevens Drive, was not open. And it went across to the 7th concession, which is the Klondike, which was the main east-west road that would take you up to Dwyer Hill and ahead to Smith Falls. They closed that road. We had no access road now to go across to the concessions. So with the advisory body, we finally got them smartened up. Did you know that the Ministry of Natural Resources introduced beavers into Marble Forest? The stupidest thing they ever imagined. You can imagine now what's happened. The beavers have multiplied so bad that they're blocking all the municipal drains. They block all the normal water flows areas. I trapped in 1970 at Meb Simpson's property to get rid of the beavers. When his widow, when he died, his widow sold the land to the city, and the Ministry of Natural Resources would not permit me to trap. The Snowmobile Club wanted me to trap on the Crown lands, and they wouldn't permit me to
1 minute, Wayne.
trap.
You got 1 minute, keep going.
So where we are today, I do not have access to my property, and they won't do anything about it. We need to form the Marlborough Forest Advisory Body again. I talked to David Brown about this. It was supposed to be brought up with the Rural Summit. The Rural Summit never addressed my concerns. The city of Ottawa is committing criminal offense of mischief. There's a section under the criminal code that says no one has the right to stop somebody from doing something you have a legal right to do. That is a criminal offense. As a police officer, when we dealt with people, landowners who were doing that, we addressed them with that and told them, you got to stop doing this or you will be arrested. You will be charged with criminal harassment. It's a criminal indictable offense. The city don't seem to get that. And the roads were closed, and under the old, when the roads were built, they were built with what was known as statute labor.
Now, Wayne, your time has elapsed, and so you and I can take this again offline. It is something that we're going to get going, and I have had a conversation with city staff. It will be my office that establishes that type of advisory body with staff support when needed. It isn't that the Rural Summit didn't address the concern. It's that we didn't look at hyper-local issues through that process. But I appreciate you coming out. We will get it established and we will address the issues. The other thing I can commit to you on is having relevant city staff come out to the office in North Core to talk about some of the specific landowner issues to make sure that private property owners have access to their properties through public land. So that's something I can commit to you today.
You're gonna find out how they got a bylaw passed without notifying the landowners?
We can cover all that offline. Happy to cover
They
it.
obviously never consulted with the Ministry of Natural Resources because they said it's only during the fall hunting season. And you can hunt year round in Marlborough Forest on my property, but I can't go there.
Wayne, I do have to cut you off because the
Okay.
5 minutes has elapsed, but
Thank
thank
you
you very
very
much for
much.
coming out. Thank you.
And thank you all for your assistance.
Colleagues, are there any notice of motion for our next meeting? Seeing none, any inquiries? Any other business? All right, our meeting today will stand adjourned, and our next ARAC meeting will be the 4th of September 2025. So we will now conclude the meeting, and in a few moments we'll reconvene as the Court of Revision. So thank you for those who have come for the regular ARAC meeting today.
Chair, can you confirm that we're going to collapse this meeting and re-adjourn under the second link?
The second link will come during our deliberation, so you can stay on this one, Councillor.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Giving us a few minutes there, we are going to convene as the Court of Revision. The item on the agenda today is the engineer's report amendments to the Wilson Cowan Municipal Drain. The report recommends that the members of the Court of Revision receive the report of the engineer appointed under the Drainage Act entitled Engineer's Report, Wilson Cowan Municipal Drain, amendments dated April 2025. And 2, convene for the first sitting of the Court of Revision under subsection 46(3) of the Drainage Act for the purposes of hearing appeals under section 52 of the Drainage Act from owners of lands that have been assessed for the drainage works in the report entitled Engineer's Report, Wilson Cowan Municipal Drain, amendments dated April 2025. The Court of Revision is now open for the purposes of hearing appeals under section 52 of the Drainage Act by owners of land assessed for drainage works under the engineer's report for the Wilson Cowan Municipal Drain dated April 2025. This court will now convene for the first sitting of the Court of Revision under section 46 of the Drainage Act. There is a presentation if the committee wishes to receive it. However, I will note that the following appeals have been received by the clerk, Aaron Moore on behalf of the City of Ottawa and Mr. William Seabrook on behalf of 969230 Ontario Inc. Any other owners of land assessed under the engineer's report who has not provided written notice of the appeal to the clerk in advance of this hearing should identify themselves to the clerk's assistant at this time with a request to be heard. So wait for a few seconds, make sure no one's in the audience or online. Okay. Each appellant will have 5 minutes to provide information supporting their appeal, and we're going to start with Mr. Dave Ryan, who will speak on behalf of the City of Ottawa, and then we'll go to Mr. Seabrook, who's in the gallery today. Mr. Ryan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It won't take 5 minutes. It's basically the base of the city's appeal is a clerical issue in their report to adjust the lots and concessions on part of the blocks that are assessed to the city. So there's no financial implications. It's just a correction, a clerical issue in the report to adjust the lots and concessions for a few blocks in the report. That's the extent of the appeal. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And just to provide an opportunity to Robinsons, anything you wish to add beyond what the delegate has provided?
No, that's it. It's a minor clerical correction.
Thank you very much, Lauren. All right, Mr. Seabrook, you're next, all the way from Manotick. So, Bill, you'll have 5 minutes to address members of the court.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if I could just interject for a sec. Andy Robinson, the engineer of record, should be a panelist on this discussion, if that's possible, Chris, to get him up there as a... Yeah, he should be a panelist, so I believe is he okay? Thanks.
Yep. Here he is. Now we can see Andy. Good to see you, Andy. Okay. All right, Mr. Seabrook, it's all yours. And if you could just hit the button for the microphone at the bottom of the base there. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah.
Your life. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just read what I've written. I think I've given copies to everybody. So subdivision in question needs to have a legal outlet to the Wilson Cowan Drain, was drafted, approved in 2003 by Reno Township, and later received draft approval from the city for 95 lots to be constructed as a conservation subdivision. From that time till 2016, there was no mention that the drain did not have legal access to Wilson Cowan Drain. But at that time, it was brought to our attention, and so we applied. We asked asked council or the city to, and they did in 16 February 10th, 16, ask Robinson to study the situation and perhaps extend the drain. It's short. The drain is short from my place, about maybe half a kilometer at the most, and but the physical drain goes right to my place. So it's a paper thing. I thought it was a paper thing, and I thought it would be dealt with by a bylaw or some other instrument, But and I had no contact with anybody. Then in 2017, the city asked Robinson to address concerns for the Middle subdivision and other subdivisions in Manotick and do a complete study, and again, I never heard anything about it not even until now. So nobody from the city or from Robinson have ever come to talk to me or look at the land or ask for my opinion. The physical ditch is already to my place. It's just on paper that it's not. So I thought it would be a simple thing, but obviously I was wrong. Now, the construction, Robinson's got a design for the new construction of the drain. And at my place, it's going to be, the ditch itself is going to be lowered 4 inches, about the length of a stem on a wine glass. You know what I mean? Like this 4 inches is like cleaning the drain, cleaning the grass out of the bottom. And so the culvert is 600 millimeters. They want to move it up to 700, which is again 4 inches, like not very much. And we've also have LRL Engineering been working with the city doing stormwater management designs and have that completed, I think. But stormwater management is to be a catchment for all the water that does drain off the property and release it slowly to the drain. But in fact, most of the water doesn't drain to the drain. The top half of the property is on the Cars esker, and it either soaks into the esker and stays there, or if it's a big runoff, surface runoff, it goes out the west side through the First Line Road and down the other drain on the west side of the property through Parsons' property. Now, another third of the property is large wet muckland, and the water runs off the property into the muckland. It doesn't go to the Wilson Cowan drain. It goes through the muckland to the south, to the farm I own next door. There's ditches there taking it south, and then it goes from there, south from there, through the municipal drain on the south side to Cars, the Rideau River at Cars. So it doesn't even go there. So the amount of water going there, like there's pictures at the back that show you the culvert. And with all the recent heavy storms we've had, like there's no water going through the culvert. None. And so I'm not sure what the biggest problem is. Nobody's ever come to ask what my opinion is, but they're willing to charge me $280,000 for the privilege of putting water in the drain, which I've been doing for 50 years. Nobody asked for money before. And the other thing you should remember is nobody south of Century Road asked for any improvements to the drain. Drain's working fine. Now they're going to clean it, and cleaning it isn't a bad idea. So a little background on it.
Mr. Seabrook, I want to make sure you make full use of your time.
Well,
if you can describe for the court why you believe your lands are being assessed too high, because I believe that was the item you checked.
Too high, yeah, it's too high. I mean, what I don't have any argument because I don't know how it was arrived at. So it's just a number. From my point of view, I have no disclosure, so I don't know where the 280,000 came from. If you take, for example, Minto subdivision has 284 homes in the catchment area, and it's solid, like it's got total runoff. If you took that and applied it to my property, I wouldn't be applying for 95 lots. I'd have 1,000 lots because my property is 4 times as big. So if I had the same density, I'd have 1,000 homes there, not 95. And I also have a parking lot there that's 10 acres large, and the water does run off there all the time. When it rains heavy, all the water runs off into the muckland and disappears. Doesn't go to the Wilson Cowan drain. So when the subdivision is built or the roads are put in, that 10 acres will be gone, and that'll relieve any problem there was. But there is no problem. The water doesn't go to the drain.
And now your time has elapsed, but I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Hopefully you can tease out a little bit more of information. If any of my colleagues have questions, we can go to them next. My understanding is you originally petitioned for this work because you're looking to build an estate lot subdivision. Is that correct?
We've been doing that since 2003.
Yep.
We didn't realize there was no legal outlet to the drain until 16.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said anything.
Yep. And based on what you've presented here today and the evidence that you've brought, there appears to be a culvert that you took photos of, and there are 2 photos here.
Yeah, there's a culvert through the Carsonby Road.
That's right. And part of my understanding of reading the report is that the engineer's report is indicating that that culvert needs to be upgraded. So I will have a few questions for the engineer, but I want to make sure I give you an opportunity in 2 or 3 sentences as to why you believe your lands have been assessed too high, because that's the purpose of the quarter.
I have no idea why it's assessed too high.
Okay.
Honestly.
No, thank you very much. Colleagues, before I go to the engineer, are there any questions for Mr. Seabrook? No? Okay. I'll go, I don't know if Andy or Lauren wish to provide a response, but can you please describe for the court why the assessments are laid out as they are in the engineer's report and how the engineer was able to arrive at the values presented?
Just before that, Mr. Chair, if I might, there was an on-site meeting held on February 1st, 2017, in which Mr. Seabrook attended. So after the appointment of the council, council-appointed engineer.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So if someone from Robertson's can respond to my question, please.
Thank you. I do have a prepared response. I'm not sure if the committee had received that in advance, but. Okay, they have it. Okay. So we were appointed on February 10th of 2016 for the purpose of providing improved drainage for this subdivision. There was a section 4 petition by the owner for extension of the drain an additional 235 meters. So the drain does end short of the Seabrook property and needs to be extended to provide sufficient outlet and legal outlet for the subdivision. The drain was developed in conjunction with subdivision plans, including the outlet for the stormwater management pond, and is required to provide the legal outlet for that stormwater pond and sufficient outlet for the subdivision. The overall development plans do show a significant change in land use, being basically vacant land now to a rural estate lot subdivision. So that's a significant change under the Drainage Act. It's generally anticipated that the property would pay, a development property under the Drainage Act would pay all of the costs associated with the improvements specifically required for development. So that's what's been done here in conjunction with that petition. Section 2 of the drain is upstream of the Minto development. So that's the lands that this particular subdivision is on. So, and they're only basically paying towards section 2, except for a very small portion of outlet in section 1. The property pays $1,545.98 towards section 1. So the rest of that is paid by Minto. There's a significant cost to the Minto subdivision. So there, basically what I'm saying is the subdivision, this particular subdivision is not paying any for the downstream outlet, very little. This property pays $22,198.46 towards section 2 for outlet. So this is the section that they're entirely on. And $7,584.63 for benefit in conformance with the other property owners. So everybody pays their fair share. And there's no difference here for this property. The one difference is the special benefit for this property. So these are generally considered the development costs, which a developer for a subdivision petitioning for improvements under the Act would be responsible for. And that is comprised of $127,310.40, which is 70% of the overall construction. And that's the portion that was determined to be required specifically for the development. It has a cost of $36,718.07 for engineering. So there's two petitions, the Minto petition and this petition. And the engineering that was assigned was only for this petition. By combining the reports, there was a significant savings in the engineering costs, so a reduction of the anticipated engineering cost to get down to the 35,000. So that was a benefit to this property. And we've also estimated $10,800 for construction administration and inspection, And there is a cost of $53,211 for the allowances, which are crop loss and lands lost due to construction for the downstream lands that are paid for by the development. The total special benefit is then $228,039.48. Development conditions require that the additional review and design be completed to ensure there is limited impact from the less frequent storm events. For example, the 10, 25, 50, and 100-year events, whereas typical drains are only designed for a 2-year event. So the existing drain would only be designed for a 2-year event. Having a subdivision, there are additional considerations, and we've had substantial consultations with the developers, engineers to ensure that those are met and that the design criteria for their stormwater management ponds can be accommodated into the drain. All property owners in section 2 were assessed costs in general conformity with the assumed amounts for maintenance. So the remainder of the owners were, if there were no requirements for the development of the property, the maintenance that would need to be done, we estimated those costs and used that as the portion that was assigned to other property owners. For example, if there is a culvert size, the existing culvert size would have been accommodated as a replacement for maintenance. It would be only the increase in cost due to the upsizing of the culvert to accommodate the development that is charged as a special benefit. We note that the costs with regard to the downstream section are assessed to other blocks, and the cost for this section are considered lower than if this section was completed alone. Therefore, we consider that the price is reasonable for the work required, and the work as prescribed is required to accommodate the development of lands and provide legal and sufficient outlet, typically required for a stormwater ECA to be issued. So what I'm trying to say there is that without this, we don't believe that a stormwater ECA could be issued, and therefore I assume there would be no subdivision. And on that, we suggest that no adjustment is recommended.
Thank you very much for that response. Colleagues, are there any questions for the engineer? All right, seeing none, the panel will now adjourn to discuss the information presented before the court, and we'll recess for a few moments, and when we return, we'll render a decision. Thank you. We're going to take a minute and we're going to get a few folks promoted back on Zoom, and then we'll resume. Okay, I think we've got everybody back online. So thank you very much for providing the court with a few minutes to deliberate. The decision of the Court of Revision with respect to the Wilson Cowan Municipal Drain is as follows. This court accepts the appeal from the City of Ottawa and orders the assessment schedules to be updated accordingly. The appeal filed by Mr. Seabrook on behalf of 96930 is denied. This court adopts the assessments in the engineer's report dated April 2025. The decision rendered by this court may be appealed to the Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Tribunal within 21 days of today, which is July 3rd, 2025. Sample appeal notices are available from the city's municipal drainage unit. You can call 613-580-2424, extension 25008. Thank you very much. Court is adjourned.